Good evening. Welcome to Monday night. Hope everybody is doing wonderfully. I know it's kind of getting to that season. I'm a little
I was
congested.
gonna say, it sounds like you got a little bit of a cold going on there, Dan.
I do. I do. I'm fighting it. I think I'm a little bit over it. I'm hoping because tomorrow's gonna be another long day if not. Um yeah, it's just it double I had 3 nights in a row of like things going on, 2 events and then another thing. And I think it was just go, 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 go. Stopped and hit me.
So this is a great. It's not a topic in which we could really dig into for a full night, but let's just take 10 minutes here, um, and talk about that. How do you handle? But we'll get to the lighting one. Don't worry, gang. We got pictures and things we want to talk about. When you're feeling under the weather like that, when you've got a cold, how do you make it through the night? Because I was working with my assistant on Saturday night, had a nasty cold, and he sounded like he had been smoking for 35, 40 years. He sounded terrible. Even on the microphone he came across, and it was just horrible. It was just what he was. But how have you guys found? I mean, none of us are rookies to this. We've done some things to try to make it through. So, Dan, since you were the
Keeping
one who had the worst voice this past weekend, what did you do to survive?
Just scream it out. No,
Nice.
for the
Ah.
most part, hard candy, or I just vitamin C drops is like my go-to. Anytime I start to feel like something coming on, they're not medicated, so it's just like just pump myself full of as much vitamin C emergency, the vitamin C drops, and just keep that thing moist as long as I can possibly go all night. So that when I do get on, you get a little bit of the nasal piece, but it's not the scratchiness that goes with it.
Sure. Cubbie,
I
what have you found that helps?
Um, like warm water with a little bit of lemon in it. To start the evening. And like same with Dan, like a cough syrup. I usually take like a cough syrup, like one of those red ones, those Ludens. They're my favorite.
You just kind of chug some back during the show, especially the one that's got the alcohol in it. Just like chug.
Yeah, Jägermeister. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
usually
And then
works
after a
real
while,
well.
Brandy. Grandma said Brandy. Where's that Brandy?
That actually Jägermeister when I was in Germany in the service, that was like cough syrup. That's what the little cross above the antlers. It's they use it as cough syrup like over there.
Hmm.
For real.
Huh. Interesting. Interesting. So over the years, back when I was in the bar doing that show consistently, it seemed like between the cigarette smoke, because at that time we were still smoking in bars, either I'd have issues with that, and my voice was so. As you said, Dan, the hard candy became a thing, and people were they started bringing me bags of mints, the little red those red and white mints up there. They're like, "Hey, John, we were thinking of you today when we were at the store," and it's like, "Oh, that was sweet of you." So I had like probably 10 pounds of those in my case when we did that. But I spend a lot of I've got different cough drops, different throat drops that I have with me. And that seems to have worked pretty well. And thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't had that complete case of laryngitis where I haven't been able to talk. Another thing is that I find I have to redo the equalizer to reset the tone a little bit because sometimes your voice is just really really, and you have to bring up the mids just to try to boost that mids and highs so you don't sound as for more intelligent sounding voice or more. How would you say it? I'm not finding the word, but the
So you don't sound
Properly
like Barry White.
balanced.
yeah, I don't want to sound like Barry White. I want to basically be so that I can, when I'm enunciating words, even though I'm not being able to say them as well as I would, that they would be able to be picked up and heard properly. So,
One thing one thing I've also done, like when you have that like pre event piece and you're like, okay, this is gonna be a rough night, especially when the laryngitis starts to sit in. Gargling with like warm salt water is another thing to just kind of repair some of that stuff. But for whatever reason, I've always lucked out, and I watched like this weekend, I'll be like stuck because I've said this. But the thing that I've kind of done is I've done all that repair stuff as much as I can leading into it, and then kind of almost like an adrenaline kicks in that also helps. So when I've had some like, man, how am I going to get through tonight? Like the voice is just gone. It's there for when I need it. But I'm definitely not like jumping on the mic more often than I need to. Although it's funny, like, cause like yesterday my throat was hurting. I did a daddy daughter dance last night, and I do my daddy daughter dances similar to the way some people do bar mitzvahs, like high interaction from beginning to end.
sure.
and it was almost like it kicked it out of my system for a couple of hours.
The
Nice.
adrenaline. Yeah, that's interesting. And to a point, I think I could observe a level of that with Jacob on Saturday night. Is that he did have a period where he seemed to get better, and his voice wasn't as scratchy. And then towards the end, it dwindled. And yeah, on the ride home, he sounded like he sounded like my grandpa from that he sounded horrible. Robin mentions Ricola. Yeah, but that's the kind of cough drops I have, or kind of drops, because they have a vanilla one that I absolutely love. I started eating those things like candy.
Oh, I'll have to try that. The Ricola vanillas?
Yeah, Ricola. The Ricola vanilla. It was a vanilla something or another, but I don't remember if it's a throat drop or if it's a full cough drop. But it's just the Walmart has them in a big bag, and they're like fabulous. Otherwise, it's the lemon one, and then of course when it gets really bad, the Halls, and it has the multi-dot one. So it's like the fourth strongest. It isn't the 5-dot one. It's the 4-dot one.
Can you drive on the 5-dot one, John?
And no, you cannot. No, you cannot. You have to have a separate driver, and really you have to have someone here to push the keys on the keyboard, because once you've had 5, then you're just completely
You're over.
Yeah, you're pretty much. All right, so that was a topic I knew that would be for some people an interesting kind of quick discussion, but it wasn't one that we could do for a whole night. Could have put it as a question and answer night. I could have done that. That would have made sense too. But, gentlemen, let's talk light shows. Nathan already shared kind of a light show that he's got there on Facebook. Nathan, thank you for being with. Robin's there. Mikey's there. Got a lot of folks joining us tonight. First off, let's talk a little bit about what is your thoughts when it comes to light shows. And we're going to talk specifically weddings. When I'm talking high school dances, we do completely different things at high school dances most of the time. And I'm going to say it that way because this fall, we have done things with light shows at schools differently than we have in the past. But weddings is what we're going to be really focusing on tonight. How has your thoughts on lighting when it comes to weddings evolved over the years, or has it been pretty consistent? And Dan, I'm going to start with you on this one again. How has your thoughts with lighting changed or been the same over your career?
My lighting sucks. There,
Nice.
I just answered the question for
Wow.
tonight. We can sign off. We can have yourselves
so
a
it's
good night.
Dan's fault.
Yes. No. It has evolved. It has evolved because I think when in the very beginning, I didn't know kind of any better. And way back when it was, I had the I-beam truss that went above me, and kind of the way I set up was all for some different things. I had like little pin spots that would flash to the light. I had a spot that would go onto disco ball, and that, mirror ball, and that would spin around. And those were what I used for the longest time as like my main go-to. And then as I got experience with what other people were using, and some of the technology, like moving heads weren't like $8,000 a piece. They became more, cost effective and stuff like that. I picked up a pair of those, but it was one of those things where I never really embraced it. And my area was not one of those where everybody and their brother had moving heads, right? Like Jersey guys, I love you all dearly, but I know like there's certain things you have in your lighting system, because if you don't, you look like you brought nothing, right? Like that's just what I've seen from any pictures from, everything from a low guy to a super high guy. But so I was looking at the moving heads, and more I just kind of was like, you know what, this is really a pain to move around. I got rid of that, and I went to wash lights. I never got into the dots. I never really got into the definitely didn't get into the lasers. And it really just became a wash. And that was one of the things that I picked up and have used for years, has just been a variation of some sort of a wash on the floor during open dancing, and it works very beautifully. The compliments I get from the videographers and the photographers that I'm not blasting, whatever. It's something that if they need to overpower it, they can. And if they don't want to, like if they want the color saturation, it's there.
Sure.
So gives them flexibility too.
Cubbie, what's your progression over your career with your light show?
Not much. Simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted something simple. I I sell more of a performance and a mixing versus a light show. I use a lot of the 4 bars, the lights that went on poles, and then most recently went with the sticks through Chevet. I know Booth Lighting has some sticks and things in nature. I just try to simplicity. Honestly, simple, sexy, cool is all I want,
Sure.
and nothing over the top. There's some guys in my markets that have the moving heads, and I thought, okay, that's cool for them, so I'm not going to try to steal their idea. So when the tube lights came out, I went the tube route versus the moving heads and the podiums,
Sure.
or the pillars that they had. So
Totems, yeah.
I like to stay different and don't have to copy everybody. A long time ago, I had a guy comes up to me and goes, "Oh, look, he was a DJ. He's at one of my weddings, and he showed me his light show, and it was just every light spin and puke. He's like, this is what's apart." And I'm like, sorry, Rizzo, Wrigley, knock it off. So I apologize. So I'm like, when everybody buys those lights, how are you different? What makes you different? When everybody buys that light, what makes he thought his light show set him apart? And I'm like, well, people can buy the same light you can. You're not setting yourself apart. So that's where I stay with performance and like the love stories and the different things that let the lights do it.
Yeah, I like the idea with being simple, and that's an important part of where my progression has taken me, because we've gone from the early days of Ben Stowe talks about the cream corn can type lights. Our early lights were floodlights that we bought from a clothing store that went out of business. They had all those the angled floodlights in the ceiling, and I looked at that and it's like, ooh, are you selling those fixtures too? And they were selling the racks, and I'm like, yeah. Give me like a couple of bucks for each one. And it's like, ooh, there's 40 of them. I'll take them all. And then I had to go buy floodlight bulbs to go in them. And then I had to figure out how to color those bulbs. So it was kind of a pain in the butt. But that was my light show for a lot of years with washes. And then we added things. And there were times where with weddings, I'd be the guy with the vertigos and the different little mirror panning barrel roll crap. And there was a time in the 90s where I was setting up 30, 40 lights for a wedding. And the time it took was just incredible. But at that point in time, I was looking at the lights as this is going to make me more valuable and I'm going to be able to book more shows. We were booking shows, and I very seldom, I had people come up and say, wow, that's a lot of lights. I bet you that's going to look awesome. And then when we turned it on, we were doing things. I mean, it did if you liked that kind of stuff. But it was never something that people were like, oh, I'm going to hire you because of your lights. Going into school dances, yes, for a while, that was the world of that. So, we're going to kind of leave that alone because you can that would give you value. And depending upon how you run them and how you present them, that part can set you apart when it comes to school dances. So, in the last number of years, I've tried to go as Cubbie's with more of a simple, and a big part of that is the ability to get out quickly at the end of the night. The setup and such, I don't want to get there 4 hours ahead of time because there's with ceremony and different things that I have to do with pretty much every wedding this fall. I'm getting there way early anyway because I have to go and set up the main system, and then I have to go set up a ceremony system outside, and then we have to make sure everything's working and wire people up and da-da-da. So I'm still getting there 3 to 4 hours before the start of the ceremony, which sucks, but that's what what we have to do to be able to do everything. So I wanted something simple and quick, and we've got a couple of different directions with the lights. But a number of years ago, Brian Red talked about that the importance or the benefit of wash lights and how they can become so versatile in things. So that really kind of stuck with what we've kind of based our shows on, wanting to have that wash light, and then if we can add additional to it, yay rah rah, so much the better. We do have the totems. We use the totems for school dances or a wedding in which they want that. We have packages where they can go and basically buy this, or this, and if they go for over here, that's where we have basically the prom level light show. It works pretty well, and every once in a while I'll have a couple who will be like, yeah, this is really cool. We want to have that, and then they start thinking about it. And it's like, but wait a second, we really don't need to spend that extra money on those lights because we're going to be on the dance floor. We're going to be dancing and having a good time, and we want to have just a nice coverage over the dance floor. And this other package does that with the floods, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Well, then we'll just go there. That's what ends up happening. So
that's what really kept me away from, or ended up where I just finally sold my moving heads. Like it was a situation where I wanted to, because I was breeding out truss. I was putting them on top of truss, like, and it wasn't at the time there may have been the collapsible truss, but there really wasn't, like, it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. The
Right.
ability to, so it was like the big extra sticks. It was more involved with the setup. Like there was a lot extra to it, and I just had couples who were just like, you know what, that's not something we really see at most of the events we go, or most of the weddings we go to of our friends. We don't need it for us either. Like,
Hmm.
I had a photographer who was like, it's awesome. I love when you spotlight them during their first dance. But beyond that, that was about the extent. So finally I was like, that's it. They're gone. Sold them.
Uh, Nathan mentions the Rockville collapsible totem. A lot of companies now have those collapsible totems. The Rockville is the one that has them in stock, which on Amazon, which is very nice. Because when I was looking for a pair this fall, it was incredibly difficult to find because I needed 2 more of them for one of our school dances, and yeah, I could not find them from ProX or any. No one had them in stock, and they're like, yeah, it'll take another 2 to 3 weeks at minimum to get to you. It's like, yeah. I think I'm going to go and get 2 bales of straw and put my lights on the bales of straw. And I know I got. So when you're utilizing wash lights, how let's talk a little bit about how you're controlling the lights and what you're doing with that. Cubbie, what do you use with the sticks? I'm not even I've seen the sticks. I've touched them a little bit. I licked my finger and wiped it on them in Minneapolis that time, but I really haven't done much with them beyond that. So how you run them?
Basically, I just run 2 functions. When it's a slow song, I got them all a solid wash. Whatever the bride's colors are, I'll try to match them the best I can. And then when the dance is going, I don't DMX them. They just go on auto, and they all light up and down. And the setting that I have on them, they have several different settings on them. I just pick the setting that I like the most. And
Mm-hmm.
so while we're fast dancing, it's all fast lights, and then when it's nice and slow song, I'll hit them and just do a solid wash.
Nice,
Simple, easy
nice.
peasy.
Yep, simple control, quick and easy. Dan, how are you doing things?
So what I'm using is still a 4-bar try, just because nobody likes to come out with a 4-bar hex. Just wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the
Yeah,
companies. I keep pushing for it, but they just don't ever listen to me.
they're like
So
there's only
that
2
being
people.
said, so I've got 2 different ways that I'm controlling it. For the longest time, I used Show Express, but really to do kind of similar to what Cubbie's doing, because they don't have a remote feature. They had the paddle board or pedal board, but I wasn't getting into that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I run an iPad that will control Show Express running on my computer, and it will activate my the sound active programs that I've got built in, as well as triggering the different colors on them for that. Um, I've recently started to make kind of a shift, because with that system, in order to effectively do it, I either need to run it off the computer while I'm DJing, have a second computer, or have the iPad with the wireless router. One of my rigs is a little bit on the smaller side, and so I don't have like the extra stuff to it, and going into the computer while I was trying to DJ just got very cumbersome. So recently I've picked up this sound switch control one, and I've used it now for 3 events,
Hmm.
um, running just the auto loops. I haven't scripted anything or gone down that route yet, but I've used that and I've been pretty happy with it. Like it's got a lot of features just nicely built in. Um, and I really haven't had to think too much about it. And that's kind of my key is quick, easy, and you know, not having to think through the night.
For sure. Yeah, I putz with Sound Switch a little bit. One of my personal light show that I'm using for weddings is utilizing gig bar moves, and I wanted that Sound Switch to work with that, and I had programmed and I had things set and I did some tweaking and I was so excited. And the very first time I took it out, well, after I set up and I was kind of going through, it was causing issues with my computer. I have a older computer. It was supposed to be able to function with it, but I was having audio drops like dip, a little dip, there every once in a while. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to my DMX control. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work and work wonderfully. It's just that for that particular, it scared me, and I haven't gone back to it yet. But it was really cool.
It's a nice feature just to have. There's been the other one, ADJ has one. I can't remember. Um, the acronym or whatever the letters that go with it. Similar type of concept, right? You got a board that allows you to hit and create and hit the scenes that you're wanting without having to have that interface into the computer.
I think that was the Wi-Fi. Are you referring
No, the
to?
Wi-Fi is for sending like the wireless signal. This is I'm blanking on it now. Let me just do a quick search. If I can even hit it.
Because what I've replaced or
WMX1.
WMX. Okay, I've heard of that. I haven't played, haven't seen it or played with it yet. Because I'm still using, as I've talked about in other shows, the American DJ DMX bridge, because then I can hook into the iPad and using the ADJ whatever Pro app, and it works. Yeah, Nathan mentions in the he uses those for his show, and I use those and. I've got different scenes all programmed on the iPad, and I can copy that to other iPads, my iPads that I take with me, because I bring multiple, and it works wonderfully. I can go with a flood. I mean, actually, Dan, why don't you if you got pop up the picture with the gig bar, the big gig bar ones there, if you would, please. I got a couple of pictures from my past weekend's wedding and Michael's. We're going to look at mine here once Dan gets that up. And what I did is
that the one you wanted?
That's the one. Thank you.
Okay.
Those are the gig bar moves there, and we are kind of all set up there in this golf course. One of the first things I wanted to do is because people complain about the gig bar moves looking cheap or looking crappy or whatever, and I personally think that the reason they come up with that is that on the top are two of these. I don't know what the heck they call the things. They're basically the kind of their version of spin and puke lights that they have up on the top. You'll see on the top of the bar there's a laser in the middle. I could care less if that thing was there personally. I didn't take it off. I did take off the other two lights, but I didn't take that particular piece off because I have it aimed up at the ceiling, and if I have little kids there, I can turn that on, and they will be fascinated watching the red and the green lasers up on the ceiling. So it's kind of fun. It's to watch them looking straight up at the lasers, and then they turn around, and fall over. Great humor. So that's why I've left those there. But it becomes something where we've got the we utilize the floods, and I've got the floods programmed. I have the moving heads programmed with different scenes that I'm doing with those. And the part I actually my favorite on these bars is that there's four. I think it's four, or is there five? Anyway, I think there's four little strobe lights on the bar facing the front. I don't use them as a strobe. I'm not into that kind of stuff, but they work wonderfully for having to bring up light for a spotlight dance or a photographer is wanting to get pictures or something to that effect. And they work wonderfully to have that. To run them on Sound Active or to run them through their programs, I think is the stupidest thing you could do when it comes to that type of a light show, because they're designed to just go through and puke everything out over the course of a chase. And it's doesn't fit whatever song you're playing or even what the kind of mood you're wanting to create. But when you can control it via DMX and to be able to access those things, in this case you can see there on the in front of the hearth of the fireplace there that they had, we've got four lights there that are those are a quad. Let me see. They're also the Bluetooth version, but I've got them set so that they do RGB, and I think those are RGBA. They're a Chauvet light. The floods that are on those are red, green, blue, UV. So they also use for DMX channels. You can go and you set those either tri or quad or three or four channel black versions that you see there on the ground. I have those linked in, so when the top floods change color, those change color. And I can either mount those on top where I took the two lights off, which is what I've done when I've had tight spacing, or in a situation like this, they're all linked together. So when the white floods are blue, the bottom is blue, and it's getting that light from on top down, and I've got the lights going up and refracting off the ceiling. It works wonderfully because you're getting that nice wash, a nice even coverage across the room, and it worked very well. That takes a little bit of time to set up. Probably the longest is to run the cords, the DMX wires that have to go around. And that kind of sucks. I'm not a huge fan of that. I could go completely wireless, but I haven't gotten there and done that yet. But the overall results, I think, work well because I can have that color. I can bring the brightness up if I need to. I can take it down. I've got some movement and such for those people who really have to have that, and yet I can adjust it so grandma and grandpa aren't getting blinded when they're out on the dance floor. Just trying to see. Okay, making sure there's nothing. But yeah, taking those lights off, I think, is a huge part of the gig bar move. Let's bump to the other one, Dan, if you could, please.
Which one am I going? Am I going to the colored version of that one or the other one?
Which one did I get? I'm sorry. Go. What do you got there?
You sent me that one, which is the color of.
Oh yeah, there we go.
The one you just showed.
Yeah, so there you're seeing the refraction of the lights from down below doing their thing, and you've got the lights from above all going. The only thing you're really not seeing in this is the mirror ball, that 2-foot mirror ball that's on the other side. I did a video on that, and this is actually the first time we've used a gobo projector as a light source. The Icon from American DJ, I use that as a light source for the mirror ball, and oh my gosh, I love that. That was so bright, and it did the nice beams around. Yeah, Dan wasn't a huge fan of how the purple looked on the fireplace.
I was okay with that.
Oh, what are you complaining about then?
I was complaining about your cord issues.
Oh, which cord are you going to complain about?
So I will say this goes back to my radio days, even before like DJs were all about like, oh, you can't show chords. I had a boss who was like hammered this into me a long time ago. And if I'm going to nitpick, I see chords here. I personally don't like the chords along the edge. I know you've already explained why they're there because of the type of lights that you're using. So there's some of those pieces, and then just the way that I would try to figure out a way to somehow
get them tighter,
run that straight down, get that tighter rather than that triangle piece that's there. Is anybody going to care about this other than DJs? Probably not, especially in this setup, because for the most part, everything else is very nicely done. I'm just picking John because it's John and I can.
Sure. And there's definitely...
So that was a piece. I was fine with the purple. I think the purple is a purple, pink, whatever you want to call that. I think that's a cool look there. I think it kind of fits.
Yeah, it's definitely the chord thing is one of those things that we've kind of looked at over the years, and it's much better than it was when we had 40 lights up there. But I get to that point of the night, or the thought process is, as you said, Dan, is anybody going to care beyond us? Probably not. The only time
here's a piece, and maybe we'll talk about this at some point, but this is a pet peeve, and I'll give you a preview of my video for Wednesday if my voice will come back fully for that one. But one of my pet peeves that I'm having lately is what I've been seeing a lot online, which is somebody will like make a comment, and John and I have a relationship to the point that I can say something like that without, and he knows what I'm talking about with this, but where somebody will say, you need to clean up your act, and the response that they'll get back is, well, my clients don't care about that, or I've never had a client complain about that. And my argument is, I get that, except for it's not like you had this light show over here that the client has researched you and seen, and then you come over here and you do this one, that would be something different. The client knows what they're getting when they get you. There are DJs that I know that are begging for gigs. Like they, every time I run into them, hey, if you got any extras, send them my way. And they make John's, nitpicking of what I just did of his thing here look like there's never a wire to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So to say a client doesn't care, I think they do, because to a degree, as long as it's at least somewhat tidy. Because when it's not, you're just not getting gigs. Like, and that's the thing that I feel with a couple of them that I'm thinking of, that in particular in my head, they're not getting, like, it's October in our area in weddings. You should have every Saturday booked unless you didn't want it booked. And they have one in the past month.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something's not right. So maybe they're not complaining to you. Maybe they're telling you in other ways, or maybe your clients have researched you and they're okay with it, but other clients wouldn't be. And I apologize, John. That was a complete tangent.
But it definitely could be part of that part of the equation. When you get to that point where you're trying to figure out, okay, why am I not getting booked? Why am I not getting referrals from past events? Everything's got to be on the table. The look of your system, how you dress, how you present yourself, how often you're smiling. All of those things are part of it. How do your performance? Are you on the microphone? Are they able to understand you over the microphone? Are you having dead air between everything's got to be on the table when you look at that. And to say that, it's no one cares that I have orange extension cords. No, there's probably somebody who's noticing it, and maybe they're not going to not hire you because of but they're probably not. They're not going to remember. They're not going to go out of the way to find out who you are because they're looked at it. It's like, yeah, that just looks kind of sketch, and that's the end of it.
Well, let's face it, they're not just interviewing you, they're interviewing 3 to 4 of the companies as well. And if another company has a cleaner setup than yours, then of course you're going to be put to the bottom of the barrel.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's bump to the other one at Michael's show. So we've with weddings this year, we've had basically 2 different lighting options that we are doing. And this is the Chauvet, the Bluetooth show that they're doing. The boys had this past weekend. With this, they have 8. I believe they have 8 of the little square Bluetooth uplights that they put around the room, but they didn't put any of them out until it started to get dark, so they could get an idea of what those Christmas lights you see on the post there, the pillars or whatever they are, what that was going to do to the room, so they would know where the best spot was. And that's the way Nicholas likes to do it. Simple, and it has gone over very well. This particular light show with those uplights around the room like that has been what the boys have been doing at their homecomings this fall. In our area, homecoming dances haven't. We just have diminishing numbers of kids going to the dances, so we ended up picking up a couple of schools that have basically been teetering on: do we this or that? Do we shut down and quit doing high school dances? Which many schools in our area have quit doing homecoming dances, but they're concerned about budget and different things. So it's like, well, we have this option we can do. It's not going to be the big light show like we do for prom, but it is something. And the schools have jumped at that, and the kids have actually been really good with it. And they're like, this is great. They can be out there, they can see each other, they can dance, they do their things. The lights change, and Nicholas runs them to the song, so they're reacting along with the song at key points. Simple. Does it take 2 people to do it? No. One person with the iPad app or whatever, or the telephone app, can do it. It's just more responsive when Nicholas is playing them more like a keyboard. He enjoys that, and it works well. But the idea is it's simple, and it covers the dance floor for a wedding wonderfully, and it doesn't break the bank. That's what you're seeing right there is under $1,000 for the light show, and then your mobile device to run them. So it can do an awful lot for a person. All right, Dan, if you want to pop those down or drop those. So Brian, of course, had talked in his video, and he's talked about it before about some of the spin and puke type lights and how those can be more annoying and having lights in the eyes and different things such as that. I wonder, is it one of those things that because the guests definitely, I've heard guests talk about how bright the lights were, and it's like, ooh, that was really. Do DJs, have we just not been thinking about that when it comes to the deer in the headlights type look from the guests? Or, why was that a thing, I guess? I don't know.
I'm able to turn down the brightness on my sticks, and I have them at different levels. So I make sure the brightness is not all the way up. And once again, it helps my photographers as well. When I'm trying to create a mood. But yeah, I would never have them at full. With my sticks, I have the capability of adjusting it, and so I would never have it full blown lights. I'd have it more of like a 70%, 65%, 70% is usually what I run them at.
But you've seen other DJ shows down in your market, and you've probably looked in there, and they had those big floods or the beaming lights shining right on the dance floor, and right in people's eyes. Was this a sign of when we were doing that? Is this something that I've always been, because of my grandmother early on when I first started this in the early 90s. She was at one of the shows, and she had made a comment to me. She goes, I really liked being on the dance floor at your show because you didn't have your lights in my eyes, so I could see and because she was older at the time, and at the time she's probably in her 70s, um, if she would get the bright lights in the eye, then there's this moment of blindness afterwards because of the eyes having to adjust back and forth. She didn't have that because I was refracting lights off the ceiling, trying to get the lights to make the room glow. But as DJs, why were we putting the lights in everybody's eyes? And yet many DJs are still doing that today. I don't understand that.
Well, I can kind of give some thoughts as to what's going on. I mean, we can't unless we bring those DJs in, we don't really know. I think some of it's probably ignorance, right, in that aspect. But the ideas of our spin and pukes, right? You're not going to aim them at the ceiling. You're going to aim them on the floor or potentially in a spot that's going to cover. You're also going to, if I'm aiming straight down, the only people that are getting my color in theory are the ones that are right in front of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what creates a problem is, like, if I shoot it down, then the people that are a little bit farther back are either in the dark or they're not getting the effects of my show, right? A couple other things that potentially have maybe fostered some of the idea. For a while, LED, if you didn't run them at full bore, you had flicker, right? And so videographers would get on you like, I've got this weird flicker, and if you had a videographer who knew what they were doing, they could match it. But if you didn't, that potentially created a problem. And I know that's something I've had an issue with, is when I don't run them at 100%, the ones that I have, because they're older, get flicker.
Hmm.
You add in also now the prevalence of barns. I can't bounce these off the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. That's there. It's so high up. And if you're in a venue that has a super high ceiling, it's so high up. So bouncing that off is another issue. And how high do your trees go? Right. At one point, lighting trees would go 9-12 feet. Now we go to these all-in-ones and we get maybe 6,
7.5. Yes.
7,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think it's one particular thing that has caused this creation of a problem, but I think it's a lot to different people. It might be different things, but I think all of them are very valid things that could have caused problems and created that type of an issue. And I know personally, for me, my beginning part was ignorance. I don't remember who it was. It was some video that I saw years ago that gave me the idea of bouncing off the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't even think of that being an option to then, one, shoot it farther over my crowd, but then bathe them and not be like an oversaturation. So for the longest time, I was like, oh, and then I did that, and then we all went to Barnes, and that kind of shut it out the window.
And that messed everything up.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say that's one of the things why I like about the tubes, with Cubbies and the others that have that, is the issue of, one, depending upon how you set up, but you have the ability to place them in different spots within the room to be able to kind of hit different people. You're hitting them kind of full length. You're not necessarily in their face. You can put them at different levels, but they're more of an actual wash than they are like straight on hitting you, as some of our directional LEDs are. It to me, some of those gives you that kind of flexibility that you don't get with a gig bar move or an all-in-one unit, because the ability to place them in different spots in the room, even moving heads, depending upon your setup, can be difficult to place in different spots and get that effect, besides right from the front, right from that band, on the stage type of aspect.
and I think that's one of the reasons why Nicholas likes those square Bluetooth uplights, is that he can go and take those around and achieve that. The only thing is, what Cubbie's got with the sticks is that he has a band of, or an illuminated amount of space. Whereas if there's nothing, it's kind of like the high barn. If it's not refracting off that 40-foot high ceiling, or if it's the arch or the curved part of a barn, and that roof is wood colored, dark brown, it's sucking all the light up, and it's like, oh, that really was 3 feet of nothing. There's not anything there. So there's definitely some advantages to those wireless those tube lights in situations like that. Kevin, when you
Yeah,
set those,
then I don't have Dan yelling at me about my cords.
Yeah, that's true. That's true because you're doing cordless.
Yeah.
Do you set those up just then by you, kind of like in your own little booth area, or do you move them, wider with some shows and in different locations with others?
It's situational. Yeah, it's based on the venue and where we're at and different heights that way to put them and where I can put them at.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the flexibility that it gives me is very nice because like I said, it's battery operated, go anywhere, different heights, different illuminations. It's very simple. And it's all
So we talked about moving heads a little bit. Is there a desire if you to add the moving heads to your light show? Could you see a time or a situation where you'd be like, yeah, I want to add these to my wedding show?
so for me or Dan.
Either one of you, both of you. Go ahead, Cubby.
Well, I'll start because I'm a multi-op, and so whenever I do, it has to be sequential with each and every one of my DJs. It was just myself, and I had to worry about myself. That's the same thing with DMXing. That's why I don't DMX because I have to train everybody on how to DMX. And if I got somebody, so everything for me has to be uniform. Everybody has to kind of do it. Our personalities are different, but everybody does the same basis of things.
Sure.
So for me, I would have to make sure that they knew how to do it, how to use it. Not saying we got idiots, but I'm just saying they'd all have to know how to do it and use it, and then provide the equipment for it. So it could kind of costly.
Mm-hmm. Dan, moving heads, is there an itch there that you would find the right situation to scratch?
Out of something like a gig bar move, no. The kind of earlier exactly what you mentioned, like when we're done with the night, I want to get out of there. I don't want to take the time to tear them down. They take up a lot of space potentially, and I know there's our smaller ones, but and somebody in the chat even mentioned like really to get the best effect, you need haze or fog or something. And the venues that I'm at, that's first off, that's an added piece. Or we're in a barn with a big ceiling and a drafty. Like it's just there's a lot of things that to me, I'm not in a situation, and I use the guy, I use the reference that I said the Jersey guys, but you all have areas, right? There's areas across the country where, excuse me, moving heads and that are commonplace, and if you don't have them, it's a problem. I'm not in that area. There are DJs in my area that have them. Not enough for me to go out and buy my own.
Sure. There's the only way I would beyond the gig bar move. The only way I would add moving heads to my wedding show would be if they could be utilized wirelessly, battery powered, so I could basically take them out of the bag, go choink choink choink, just like the Bluetooth uplights. And I want an app that's basically native to the device, so I don't even have to run a wire. Not even the American DJ thing. I want it just like the Bluetooth, the Bluetooth uplights, so that I can go and put those. It would have to be something that for most of
them are getting, and then you add in like a Donner stick or or any of the wireless type of devices that it's really just like they're battery powered and they're charged, and you stick them in and you're ready and you're running with them. Um, I think some of those have definitely sped up that option
Mm-hmm.
uh to the point that like I contemplated like the collapsible totems with like Wash FX, like to kind of do I go that direction to
Right.
replace like the 4 bars? That gives me an extra option, but then that's a lot more setup. I think because of the progression that we've had with some of the um with some of the moving heads going to the battery powered, that they're going to be faster in a setup like than a totem with a Wash FX would be. That is what I've seen from some people, and they're great lights. Don't get me wrong. I just again I went quick. I went in. I went out. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's more often than not the in and out. I know pretty much every venue that I have been to this fall with weddings, that was an important thing. Whether it was a barn or if it was a golf course, is that we had to be done at 11:15 Saturday. The guests had to be all up by 11:30, and by quarter to 12, they wanted basically me to be backing the truck up to load out because I needed to be out of the building by 12 o'clock. And unfortunately, because of how things went, it was just about 12 o'clock when we got the stuff out because it just did not, we didn't make good time with that. So, Donner Wireless. Yeah, some people have talked about the Donner Wireless. I actually had picked up a set to try and do some video work with. And I don't know, something in our Wi-Fi system here interferes with them. And I could not get those things to work here in the office or the hoot, no matter which. There were 2 transmitters and I think 8 receivers or whatever it was that it came in that kit, and they never functioned that well for me. Other people have had good luck with them, but not myself.
I have ones. I have like Blizzard Lighting, like
Yeah.
years ago, used to sell like the sticks, and they were the plug-in ones, right? They weren't battery powered.
Yep.
I have huge success with those from when I've used it. If I'm now, not so much now because I have a new set of uplates, and they have their own system for sending. But before with my old uplates, they all worked off of that same system. So it was just like I didn't even bother running a cable to my 4 bar. I would
Sure.
just take one of those Blizzard lights, stick it in, and then I was done. It was like,
Nice.
okay, one less cable.
Yeah, for sure. That would be nice. That would be nice. So anyway, I think the big takeaway that I wanted you guys out there to there's multiple ways to do it, and depending upon, as Dan mentioned, you're in your market, if you're going to be, if it's accepted or expected that you have this type of a light show, you may have to invest to be playing in that area. You can set yourself apart with your light show. As Cubbie said, if somebody else has the same credit card or has credit card, they can have the same light show. It doesn't. That's not what's going to make you more valuable. Most likely, it's not going to be what sells you. The microphone and your music choices are going to do that much more than your light show. It doesn't matter, really, in many ways, as long as it's a pleasant experience and people can go have fun, and your lighting, sound, whatever, isn't interfering. Keep getting back to that. The parties that are the greatest parties are when people are out there now and having that shared experience where they're able to all sing along to whatever that song was. That's that's what they're talking about as they're leaving. It's like, oh man, we had so much fun. We were singing along to whatever the song was, and it was just great. I haven't been out on what, that's the kind of stuff they're talking about. They're not like, oh my gosh, that moving head was so great. Did you see the gobo? And that color green was to die for. I've never had that. I don't know. Maybe it was me.
With lighting, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Okay. Occasionally. So coming up next, DJNTV.com/chill. Hanging with Howie is out there. I'm going to just put that link up there. Robin puts that out there, and I'm just sending it to all the different channels tonight. You guys can pop out there. They're going to be recording here at the top of the hour. They record about a 20-minute show, and then after that, everyone turns on their cameras and such, and it just kind of hangs out and talks shop for sometimes up to 4 hours. It's like, oh my goodness, they get some marathons in there. And then tomorrow morning, I've got a video that's dropping. Dan's got a video Wednesday morning. Tomorrow night, we'll have some of the shows hitting on. Or we'll stream one of the shows tomorrow night, and then Wednesday night it'll be the Howie and Brian show. Next Tuesday, we're going to be kicking off the Big Daddy show. It'll be coming at Tuesday night at 9:00 Eastern. That'll be Big Daddy. He's going to be doing a weekly show where he's going to be interviewing some new faces for many of you, people you haven't met before, and he's going to be kind of introducing us to these new and up and coming people in the DJ industry. So, the Big Daddy show will be launching, and we've been putting all the resources together so he can have a Big Daddy Smiles Loudly gift bag that he'll be giving to his guests and such. So it should be kind of fun hearing Big Daddy introduce these new folks, and that will be starting next Tuesday night at 9:00 Eastern. So just watch for the link. It'll be in the Sunday email, and you'll be able to catch that, and we'll see you next Tuesday with that show. So Dan, take us home, and we'll let Howie get going.
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking time out of your night to join us, and maybe you got some ideas of some light shows you might want to try, or different directions that you might just be able to go. It's completely up to you, but we do appreciate you for taking time to join us. Have yourself a great one, and we'll see you all next time.